Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another political episode. So, a couple days ago, we saw the death of Clark Gruening, who is in Alaska House of Representative from the 7th District. What qualifies to honor or present the life of Clark Gruening is he was the Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate in 1980. And it's going to be harder because we can't really necessarily determine borough results, and that's kind of like we usually like to do, is to determine the borough results, what the borough results look like. Kind of hard to do in this, I'm not gonna lie, because you got state house results, and I don't know why Alaskans like to do this, but they like to determine and present the election results by state house district, which of course is kind of interesting because Alaska doesn't have U.S. federal House districts because they're just one congressional district. But looking at the said result in regards to Alaska, you can clearly see that this is the result for the said race, Clark Gruening and the Frank Markowski race. And we know Frank Markowski, he's still alive, he's still trucking. He is the father of the rhino, incompetent rhino Senator Lisa Murkowski. Frank Markowski is just as rhino as Murkowski. He is, although I want to believe, more pro-life though, but he was the very first U.S. Senator, Republican U.S. Senator, to support gay marriage. And then calling to, of course, his fellow Republicans to recognize gay marriage when gay marriage was really still controversial in the 90s, which was quite interesting. He was, there's no surprise that Lisa Murkowski mainly gets the politics from her father. But we're talking about the said election results, and apparently I would love to talk about the primary results, but we cannot. Reason being, we do not have real indications what the primary results really look like. I tried to find a borough map on, of course, Google. You can, and you already know that's not really the case. But we can actually go and look up the election atlas for said Alaska, and you do get results, but they're by state districts. We got Republican primaries, Democratic primaries, mainly the presidential race. But I'm already trying to do the math and trying to figure out the boroughs. And I like to do this because we could talk about the electoral history of Clark Gruening, but this is pretty much his electoral history. We could actually read the said paragraph here. Clark S. Gruening was an American attorney and Democratic Party politician from the U.S. state of Alaska. He is chiefly known as the second of the three persons to defeat the incumbent holder of Alaska's Class 3 U.S. Senate seat in the primary election. Clark Gruening was born in San Francisco, California, the son of Huntington Sanders, Hunt Gruening, the second born, and last surviving son of Ernest Gruening, who at the time of Clark's birth was governor of the territory of Alaska. He grew up in Juneau, Alaska, where his father was an airline pilot and executive. Clark graduated from Juneau Douglas High School in 1961, received a BA in political science and science from the University of Oregon, and in 1965 a JD from George Washington University in 1969. He moved to Anchorage that same year. Gruening, the attorney outside politics, was elected to two terms in the Alaska House of Representatives, starting in 1974 in the 1980 U.S. Senate election. In Alaska, he ran in the Democratic primary, defeating incumbent Senator Mike Gavel. So honestly, that's a big mission to do. I must mention, he did take out the incumbent, Mike Gavel, who, looking at his record, pretty popular. I mean, we got borough results on this guy. I mean, I don't really necessarily know why we don't have, okay, this is historical borough, but this historical borough borders, compared to present day borders, this is what it looks like. But obviously, very different said result Mike Gavel, he must have screwed up really bad and to lose respect from fellow Democrats. But he took out a very popular Alaska senator. In 1968, Gravel himself uh, had defeated Clark's grandfather, Ernest Gruening, in the Democratic primary. Both election results were attributed by Alaska's blanket primary system, which was brand new in 1968, and eventually discontinued due to the complaints by individual political parties that members of other parties had a hand in the selection of their party's nominee. Specifically, it was felt that Republicans had supporters of Frank Markowski voted in large numbers for Gruening in hopes of eliminating Gravel. Extremely unpopular with Alaska voters at the time, Gravel nonetheless felt to pose a more serious challenge to Markowski, largely on account of his incumbency. Gruening went on to lose the 1980 general election to Markowski, very likely because of the Reagan cocktails that Ronald Reagan offered. Gruening died on June 17, 2025 in Juneau, Alaska at the age of 82. So, obviously, with good results here, we covered that whole Gruening in a nutshell. People are like, you probably wondering, oh, what's Gruening's results other than district or said very clumsy borders? I'll tell you, looking at the said results, we can try our best to indicate the results. They're very similar to the said, this is 1980, very similar to the said 1980 results of that year. If you actually pull up the said presidential election results, you can actually see the election. You'll see, according to district, comparing the same direction. But keep in mind, you do have a third party, not to mention, Ed Clark came in third place, not John B. Anderson. So it was much of a closer race than what many had anticipated. I would like to know, this is historical borough results, but yeah, I want to know, of course, the state house results, they do change over time. So I do think that North Slope borough would go for the said Democrat, Clark Gruening. We can actually put the labels here. Gruening versus Markowski results. So I do think Gruening is picking up the traditional Native American areas. Whether Markowski is doing that, we can actually compare the results. Yeah, Markowski's picking up the very traditional Republican areas, including Anchorage and the borough surrounding it. We even have the Antilles of Alaska, those islands, going to Gruening, as suggested here. We'll also call this here, it's likely it's going to be called that island. So I feel like this is like election nights sort of deal. Don't know about this one, though. This did go Republican. 1980. 1970. That's right. The boroughs back in the 70s, like this borough right here, Native American borough, pretty democratic today, was indeed more conservative. So it could very well went to Markowski. I'm not sure. I would play around with that, going for Markowski. I would say this area here would go to Markowski. Down here, you have these areas, the rural Native American areas, they're definitely going for Gruening. So it looks pretty traditional if you were to ask me. Of course, this is kind of what I believe the results look like. If you were... So, yeah, ultimately, Markowski won. I mean, he has the areas needed to win, which was the Anchorage areas, the areas surrounding Anchorage. But I think this is what the 1980 Senate results look like. Margin, I know Wikipedia is not going to take this video because we don't add margins. But we do have the traditional area. Yeah, like this here. Yeah, I do think maybe we can go ahead and call this one for this district. Bristol District, the Bristol Borough, or whatever that borough is called. I do not know my Alaska boroughs, by the way. We could go ahead and play around with it and say, it could have went that way. But we do know, yeah, this went Democratic. That's true. But by according to that borough, but you have also the top, and we know for sure, like Slope Borough. A lot of people will think, oh, it's an instant flood. I'm not so sure. Because we do know Slope Borough's a little tossed up, but it's 60% Democratic. So it's actually kind of hard. Not to mention, these areas are not really populated. But I would imagine that it's more of a close result there. But that's sort of what I'm looking at. But anyway, what do you guys think in regards to this video and the life of this very unique video? Because never before have we done a video on an Alaskan politician. And knowing Wikipedia, and it's not really Wikipedia's fault, it's Alaska's, is a state very complicated to actually predict the results and analyze results because they do their results by borough. And not by borough. Borough is just how they divide their governing. But they do their results by state district, and it's just complicated. But anyway, this is kind of what I think the results look like by borough. But anyway, what do you guys think in regards to this video? Let me know down below. And as always, I'll see you all in the next political episode.